Hello. Today, once again, Jerusalem and all of Israel woke up in the morning to the country's sirens sounding due to yet another ballistic missile attack from Iran against Israel's civilian population. And my family and I came running to this bunker to take shelter from the attack. What I want to do today is bring you along and show you what our reality is like, show you the details of our shelter, and explain to you what is really happening in this war, and most importantly, why it is happening right now. So if you're ready, let's get started. This bunker, we're now in my building. I live 2 floors up, and this is the classic bunker found in Israeli buildings, actually in the slightly older buildings. Since the creation of the State of Israel, Israel has been constantly under attack, and that's why the country needs to protect itself. In the late 40s and early 50s, all buildings started to have this type of bunker up until the early 90s. So our building is actually from the early 90s, and that's why we have what's called a miklat meshutaf, a collective bunker, and now we're going to go inside it. You can see here, you have no idea how heavy this door is and how reinforced it is. You can come in here with me. So the idea of this bunker is that when the sirens go off, unfortunately, this has been happening since October 7th. This has really been happening. We come in and we lock ourselves in here inside the bunker. This is made to withstand major attacks. So the door, as we can see, is an impact-resistant EDF door. Even if the missile doesn't land exactly here but lands nearby, often the impact, this shock wave, can cause very serious damage and loss of life. So this is an impact-resistant door, and the entire bunker is made of reinforced concrete, which is called reinforced concrete. According to Israeli regulations, the minimum is 30 centimeters, but here you can see, everyone, that my bunker is much thicker than 30 centimeters. By Israeli standards, it's considered really well reinforced for a building's bunker. This isn't a public bunker from the city hall. When the sirens go off, it's our family who comes in here. Of course, our neighbors too. And obviously, if there are other people on the street who want to come in, of course. Everyone in the building will open their doors for them as well to welcome them. The place isn't the most glamorous. You can see that aesthetically, it's very simple, but it was made to protect lives. Billions of dollars are invested every year in Israel, both by private and public initiatives to protect the population. It's not obvious that a residential building in Jerusalem has to have all of this, but unfortunately, that's our reality. So let me show you a little bit of what we have. We have bathrooms here, precisely because we don't know how long we might need to stay inside the bunker. So that's why we have bathrooms here, 2 actually. There's this one and the one next to it. We have a very simple radio here, but it's important because inside here there's no internet signal, no phone signal. So the moment you enter the bunker and close the door, you become disconnected. So you need to use other techniques to communicate with the outside world and to understand what's going on. And that's exactly why there's a radio here. And so when the siren goes off, all the neighbors come in, close the door, and we really stay quiet so we can hear what's happening on the radio. Here, the neighbors also have their bags with food and snacks, which is especially important for the children. So here we have little toys, little trucks. And this is a suitcase full of Barbies for the girls in the building, card games. So it's a sad reality that the children are getting used to this, getting used to the siren going off. Imagine my 3.5-year-old son knows the words bunker and siren, all in Hebrew, of course, but he knows all about this reality. So when the siren goes off, he knows you don't have to explain anything to him. When the siren starts, he knows to put on his shoes and go down to the bunker. Then we lay out a rug on the floor that's kept in the corner. We take out the toys and the kids play and have snacks to try to keep things as normal as possible, even in times of war. But we live in a reality where in the bunker of our building, we have to have toys for the children. And right next to the toys, there are gas masks. These gas masks, you can see they're really dusty, they're not being used, but in the 90s, during the Gulf War, Israel started being attacked by Iraq, and because of that, there was a fear of chemical weapon attacks, so the government distributed gas masks to the population, so some neighbors brought their gas masks and left them here. I also have mine in my apartment, but they're upstairs, I didn't bring them down here. Because in reality, we don't need gas masks because of the filters. Let me turn this off for a bit. This here, everyone, is a filter, which in Hebrew is called abak. This is a filter to protect against weapons of mass destruction. A stands for atomic, B stands for biological, and K actually stands for chemical. This protects against atomic, chemical, and biological attacks. So there's a whole filtration system here so that if any of these types of attacks happen, we're inside here, we're protected not only from the current threat, which is ballistic missiles, because what's threatening Israel, Jerusalem, and its population today are exactly these ballistic missiles, but in the past we've also had other types of threats. So you can see that there are these filters all around. We also look, let me show you. We have emergency exits here. So usually bunkers like these are built underground. So if something happens and the main entrance gets blocked, we can open this here and go out through a tunnel, come out on the street and save ourselves. So right here, we're actually seeing two of these emergency exits. But why are we using this bunker these days? What is the war that we're living through right now? The war between Israel and Iran didn't start 10 days ago with Israel's first attack on Iran. This current conflict began in 1979 when the Islamic Republic took power in Iran, and since then they have been preaching the destruction of Israel, the United States, England, Saudi Arabia, and the West. All those who think differently from the Islamic Republic, they, folks, are against women's rights, the rights and independence of Christians and Jews, and everyone who is different. And if you don't believe me, that's perfectly fine. Listen to them from the mouths of the leaders of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Hussein Salami, who was the chief commander of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, said the following: "We are planning to destroy America, Israel, and their partners and allies. Our ground forces must cleanse the planet of the filth of their existence." And he doesn't stop there. He says the following: "We will fight them on a global level, not just in one place." Our war is not a local war. We have plans to defeat the world powers. Did you hear that? Their war is not just against Israel, but against the Western world, against Judeo-Christian values. And by the way, they call Israel the little Satan. Do you know for them who the great Satan is? The United States. And that's why we have to listen to what comes out of their mouths, because they're not lying. What happens is that the media often doesn't convey the whole truth or tries to reinterpret it. People don't interpret it correctly. Listen to what they said 7 years ago in the Iranian parliament, way before the current war officially started. Listen to what they did and what they said. when they burn the American flag, the British flag, the Israeli flag, and say, "Death to the West," believe what they say, because this is much more than just words. Because since then, since 1979, Iran has not only spoken, but they have organized hundreds of attacks and assaults against places in the West. Like the bombing of the American embassy in Beirut, Lebanon in 1983, when a car bomb killed 63 people. Also in Latin America, in Buenos Aires, Argentina, there was the Argentine-Israelite Mutual Association attack. On July 18, 1994, a car bomb destroyed the Argentine-Israelite Mutual Association Center of the Jewish community, killing 85 and injuring more than 300. I can't even tell you about all the attacks organized, orchestrated, and financed by Iran. Otherwise, we would spend hours and hours here just talking about that. But everything you're seeing on the screen are some of these attacks. And they do this not only with their own Revolutionary Guard soldiers. What they've done since 1979 is create and empower, arm, and finance terrorist groups throughout the Middle East and also beyond it. Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard that's also inside Iraq, and so many, many others. And guys, again, this isn't just coming from me. They themselves say it and are proud to finance terrorism. According to the order of the Supreme Leader of Iran, all the missile power you see in Gaza and Lebanon was created with Iran's support. And that's why for decades the missile problem has been constant in Israel, sometimes more, sometimes less. But tens of thousands of missiles have been launched by terrorists in the Gaza Strip and Lebanon against Israel, killing Israelis, Jews, Christians, Muslims, and also killing Palestinians. The escalation of Iranian violence continued until Iran, then last year in 2024, carried out 2 direct ballistic missile attacks on Israel in April and in October. And that was really an escalation in violence, because when we talk about Iranian missiles, they are much more powerful than the missiles used, for example, by Hamas and Hezbollah. And they launched more than 200 ballistic missiles in each of those rounds. And the main thing is to understand that the targets of these missiles were civilian targets. They launched these missiles at residential areas, hitting buildings, daycare centers, even a synagogue in Bnei Brak, and a mosque in Haifa, the Al Jarina Mosque. And just a few days ago, in fact, an Iranian ballistic missile fell and hit and destroyed part of Soroka Hospital, one of the main hospitals in southern Israel, which is located in the city of Beersheba. And what happened there, I think, is nothing short of a miracle, because just a few hours before the missile fell and destroyed the top 2 floors of the entire surgical wing, the hospital's management, seeing the missiles being directed at civilian areas, at hospitals, at daycare centers, schools, realized they would be a potential target. And if a missile fell on a surgical wing in use, it could cause nothing less than hundreds of deaths. And just a few hours before that missile fell, the top 2 floors of the hospital, of the surgical wing, were completely evacuated. And that's when the missile fell, injuring people on the lower floors, people who were also sick, patients and hospital staff. But thank God no lives were lost in this attack. But that only happened because, out of concern from the authorities, in this case those responsible for the hospital, they wanted to protect their people. It's no wonder we have all this, because Israel's goal is to protect its people. And we see that Iran has no fear of attacking Israel, the United States, and they focus on civilian targets. And now a regime like this, that has done everything you've heard about, just imagine a terrorist regime that also funds terrorists having a nuclear weapon in their hands. And that would be a threat on a global scale. Because of this nuclear threat, Israel attacked Iran 10 days ago, once again focusing on nuclear and military targets. And the United States, also understanding the importance of defending the West, defending everything we've talked about so far, they also got involved, and last night, in the early hours, they also carried out attacks on nuclear facilities. Because according to the International Atomic Energy Agency, they had enough uranium in Iran to build up to 9 nuclear bombs. The construction of a nuclear bomb by Iran was really imminent, and that's why this war broke out like this now. And that's why the only solution for peace, or at least something closer to peace in the Middle East, is with the fall of the Islamic Republic. And that Iran can go back to what it used to be. Iran, as a population, is friendly toward Israel. It's hard for us to imagine with what's happening nowadays, but until 1979, there were daily direct flights between Tehran and Tel Aviv. People from Iran used to come here to Israel for vacations. Israelis used to travel to Tehran. We're talking about 250,000 Iranians living in Israel nowadays. 250,000 Iranians living in Israel nowadays. A population of 10 million people. The populations are friends and are like sisters. Unfortunately, as many of you know, the government doesn't always represent its people. And I'm sure that the government of Iran doesn't represent who they truly are. And even when we look at the statistics, we see that they have a failure rate of 80%. And that's why, if you want the best for the Iranian people, pray for their freedom, pray for peace in Iran, and also pray for peace in Israel and its people. Because just as these terrorists managed to usurp Iran in 1979, I'm sure their government can also fall and have free elections. Because that's all we need for the Iranian people to be able to decide their own future. I'm sure their will is not to destroy Israel, but to go back to being our friends and our brothers, as they always were since biblical times with Cyrus of Persia, who allowed the reconstruction of the temple in Jerusalem and the return of his people to their land, and even to this day. So here's the call to everyone. Pray for Persia, for the Iranians, and for Israel.